because in general, we believe that people deserve to be recognized for their work, and you know, we believe that evaluations are an important part of closure for these people, and creating this kind of arbitrary distinctions between events based on the kind of the team building committee work GA structure, I think is very outdated in kind of the modern day. Like both of our events were much larger in many cases than many regional events, and perhaps national events as well in terms of size, scope, 100 participants, 3 days, etc. But just because of this idea that we couldn't give evals to these people, despite them wanting that feedback and wanting to grow from it. But even outside of that, we've seen many incredibly important events that do incredible things for our network, including from the IO as well. For example, personally, I attended the Ukraine Lab, and it was one of my favorite events of all time. So shout out to you, Julia, if you're here. Yeah, for that. Yeah, so it's just about trying to modernize that policy, and also including kind of the new roles involved as well, like facilitators and participants versus chair people and delegates. They are substantively the same thing, but of course, under our policies are outdated. So it's really just about modernizing that and making sure that we can give people, give evaluators the right to make evaluations should they believe that the event itself is you know, valid enough to give that feedback. We believe our evaluation system is all about, you know, evaluator discretion and you know, them making judgment based on what's best for them and the evaluee. And we believe arbitrary setting, this event is not important enough to be eligible for evaluations, and this event is just not something conducive with that idea. And to make it very clear, this does not enforce evaluators in any respect to make evaluations. We understand in a one-day event it might not be practical. This is not creating an expectation. This is merely saying if they believe that there is enough content in the scope of this event to offer value to evaluees, then they have the capacity to do it. It's all about giving people choice. It's not about enforcing things upon people, and it's just about recognizing people's work. Thank you. Oh, should I go possible action? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we kind of settled this. Yeah, so clause 5 has been aligned to be kind of an all-inclusive clause that describes which officials can receive evaluations, which in the previous one, there was separate. There's a separate. I think that there's no point having this kind of as a policy. Evaluate that discretion and allow people who have work into making these events possible the recognition they deserve, the feedback they deserve. If we believe evaluations are important, we believe this proposal is. Thank you. Oh, should we go? Yeah, fine. Yeah, it's fine.
So we have any statement for
okay, I'm not gonna take 2 minutes. So basically we just wanted to thank UIP Ireland, UIP Croatia, and UIP Turkey for this proposal, and that it is once again a very good, clear rephrase and addition to the existing policy. An initial restraint I may have had was that it doesn't give a specific time frame of how long people should be at an event to get evaluated, but then Joshua's reasoning kind of really cleared that up, because it is in the end a subjective matter. It is in the end an objectively subjective matter of how much they observe the individual and how they perform during the event. Therefore, I find this proposal is very clear, very good, and that would actually help everybody make it clear for who to evaluate and how to evaluate. We at UIP Boston Herzegovina recently had a instance where someone asked for evaluation but was not, but the policy didn't allow it, and this way we could help people grow. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. We are moving to
We had a statement, but it can also be point. It's not impressive. We had a statement, but it can also be point. It's fine. Great, thank you. So to audiences who proposed this, thank you. And as EYP Greece, we would like to congratulate you for that. So recently we had organized. Yeah, it was just a thank you. Okay, so recently we had organized our second international training that had many trainees from all over Europe, and it was very successful. And to be fair, recently, as the NC rep, I discovered that I could not write evaluations for the head organizers, and the head organizers could not write evaluations for the organizers. But the thing is, this session was one of the most successful sessions EYP Greece organized, because in terms of fundraising, they made a huge effort, and it was evident by old and new members in the NC. So thank you so much for proposing this. Small scale events are equally important to other events, and the participants should have the opportunity to receive evaluations for their performance. Thank you.
I also not going back to the end of this
No, it's a two.
Someone.
As far as the two examples are concerned, for congratulations on a successful event. The good news travel far. As far as this is concerned, yes, if you put in the work, if you put in the hours, if you stay hungry, if you devour, you should be recognized for that. And as far as our neighbor's point is concerned, indeed, it is important to have it. And the biggest clarification we can make from our side, of course, is that this can be applied retroactively, maybe also for relevant for the Greek example. Sadly, it is what it is. However, as far, since it's passing, also if it's passed by the GB, so from that moment on, it will be applicable. So that is the most important clarification. I think both remarks were quite positive, so there's nothing more to bang about, to be fair. And that's it. Thank you.
So we have a very good although I will go out to win and then I will make all round general and see how the debate goes. So round one, I will say general and then take the points. Thanks, you can take the point on everything. Meeting number one. Gather around the debate. I didn't see have a point to raise the placard. Okay, I think I have it on authority to act upon the formal request sent by the Netherlands to end this debate early and proceed to vote. I think.
So unless somebody has any objections to it,
I think this is a unanimous.
it has to be the.
So actually, the thing is, does anyone oppose starting the debate up and going straight to voting? Thank you. Meaning that now we will vote. So this is the network-wide policy. We need a 2/3 majority, and I actually propose that we do this very center. Well, this is perfect. So yeah, the policy is approved. Yeah, of course. Approved from the BNC side. Also,
Yes, you know, and it's fine with the end.
Also, the next agenda item is the last agenda item that we have, and BNC. I am reading the scene.
Hello, when we do up the final agenda item, like, section of the item of the day, there will still be some updates, closing remarks, and something to the vote, like, from your side. But we're moving on to agenda item 26. 36, update the policy on eval and feedback from the closed session evaluations process brought forward by BNC Sweden. Spokespersons are, spokespeople, not sure. Nicholas and Dura from BNC Sweden. It's on the page 87 of the booklet, and it's in the policy proposal. It is the net required policies, so it was required to go in both. The aim of the proposal is highlighting the importance of educational values of evaluations in university cultural events and implementing a more formalized policy spectral system. But basically, we'll think much more about this from the proposing entity. Just let me. Okay, so we're trying to do. Okay, we'll go to.
Yeah, cool. I need to keep the charge.
Okay, yes, hello, everyone. This policy proposal, or at least the idea behind it, has been brought up first, but as well as the board of the Sweden, through essentially member feedback, but also our own experiences at the sessions and around. It feels that there is some kind of growing lack of interest and effort being put into the writing, the giving of evaluations. I would like to highlight that we are a non-formal education organization, so this is kind of a big purpose of what we should be doing. And so essentially the proposal is divided into three parts. The three parts do not all talk about the same thing. So if we are open to having split votes, if there is a willingness to do so. But the first part is, I'll speak out the aim. Yeah, sorry. You will want to create a more defined timeline for the post session official responsibilities. This is something that is not really done as for now on the policy. Yes. So the first proposal, this proposal, we thought about essentially a system in which one could formally request an evaluation on the members platform. So far, the way this is being done is through Slack, through messages, Instagram DMs, whatsoever, but it's not really formal and there's no way of keeping track of this. Also, I would like to note that through the thinking process of this, I contacted some other NC reps in an informal way to ask about their ideas, but I also had meetings with Gunesh on the GB to ask for feedback, as well as Joao, to talk about how this could be implemented. And just a little word on the proposal 1 on the systematically. This does not mean the meaning of this word means that the system will do it by itself. It does not mean that the other meaning of systematically. This is a question that has been asked before. So the system will automatically do it by itself. Next. Proposal 2. Yeah. The second proposal is extending the deadline for NC board members for the leadership of their events. We think that there should be also a bit more time given for the NC board members to evaluate their leadership. Why? Because there are soft skills which should be evaluated. And For instance, AWP Sweden, we do use feedback forms, and that of course implies time. So we believe that giving a bit more time should be something that would be beneficial to the to the network. Next slide.
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. If you guys have the proposal under your eyes.
Yes, here,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. The third proposal is essentially implementing a deadline for when officials can ask for an evaluation. As for now, there is no grounds or policy on how to do this. So theoretically, one can ask for an evaluation the day of the deadline. It should be submitted, as there's no rule, which would most likely push the team leader in a breach of policy. So we should think that in this policy, we should also think about the team leaders and their rights. And intended outcome, yes. I've really basically spoken about it and summarized it. Yes, next. What potential illustration, I would like to know this. I did it, or EYP student did it after consulting the IO and the GB. So this is just for illustration purposes, but this would be a suggestion, a proposal, how it would look, so you guys know what could be expected. Of course, the team of coders that could come up with the system would have a bigger say on this. Why? Because they have the knowledge. But essentially on top, even though it's a BNC meeting, I took that because it was fun. You would have a button to click, top right, and then you would have a request for an evaluation. And on the other side, as a team leader, for example, you would see it's a bit small, but who requested for an eval. So overall, we are just aiming to implement something, a system. We're not questioning in any way the fact that the clause 24, which essentially says that if a team leader gives an evaluation late, they will be flagged. This is not what we're discussing. We're just discussing the implementation, or at least for the first clause.
Any universal?
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we would like to basically congratulate you on this. I really do think it's very needed, and also another benefit from this that you actually didn't point out, but I think it's very beneficial, is having the NCs have a longer deadline for the submission of evals can also account for, let's say the president doesn't give evals to his chairs because he forgets, the NC board members can also put that in there. So that's yet another benefit from this proposal.
Huge thank you to the proposing entity for this. Just in regards to it is, we do just, at the moment, we are in agreement with all clauses bar clause 5. I do believe the systematic flagging, while we do need to strengthen our culture for actually evaluating within EYP, I think systematic flagging can cause a lot of issues based on people's own personal lives outside of it, post sessions. So just relating to clause 5, I do believe that the systematic flagging can become an issue when relating to people's own lives, relating to make sure that people do have a life outside of UIP. We are a volunteer organization, and the post-session obligations don't always account for how we're dealing with everything post an event. So I don't believe I'm not completely in agreement with clause 5, and I feel like we should discuss it further. In regards to the other parts, we're very happy. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. So EYP Turkey also supports the proposal to like every extent because we also unfortunately observed team leaders not submitting evaluations after receiving the request from the officials. Considering the points made by EYP Ireland, statement made by EYP Ireland, yes, they have also personal lives, and yes, we should respect that. But this is actually about communication. So that could be communicated, and this communication problem could be the solution for this aforementioned problem. So that's why it is not about flagging, in our opinion, it is about communication. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, EYP Portugal and EYP Turkey for showing support. We need to have a same thinking process, which makes us really happy about it. About EYP Ireland's point, we do understand that people have lives outside of EYP and that we're all volunteers here. Yet there's something that should be brought back to our minds, that when people take on leadership positions, they're expected to be leaders themselves, and it's only on them. I would also invite you to go read the policy as a whole, and most likely, or more precisely, sorry, clause 24, which already says that if a team leader has to give an evaluation, this is not something we're discussing now. This is something that's already implemented. So this is just the system. And as a matter of fact, a similar system, just for information here, a similar system is already active with international sessions, where there's someone that's already checking manually that officials get the evaluations. So essentially, this would be just an extension and a technological development on the members platform as well. This would be an extension of something that's already happening, but at a much smaller scale. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be opening the floor for debate. There is some structure to this debate. We will first be talking about the first proposal of clause 5, just for your convenience. It is this one. So on the systematic reply, in case officials don't get their email, they can request. So regarding that, we open the for debate. We will take points from Norway, to Syria.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much, EYP Sweden. Really like the proposal. The only question we have is directed to the IO, or
Just a bit louder.
yeah. So our question is towards the IO or EYP Sweden. If you have been in contact with the IO about the feasibility of this, also considering the fact that, well, we have to make some budget cuts, so it's not necessarily feasible either to develop such an option, although I would really like to see it. But yeah, so I think also it's important that we don't legalize something that the IO is then unable to fulfill. It does say in the proposal that it should only be implemented in December of 2023. My question is this feasible for the IO, either EYP Sweden or the IO themselves?
Thank you, Kinara. We will acknowledge EYP Ireland's direct response.
Thank you, EYP Norway, for bringing up this point. Just to follow on from this, if anyone knows, the workload of the HR officer is between 15 and 20 hours per month. So quite a small amount of time with over 300 events per year, like the actual workload of this will increase, like, and the idea of systematic and automatic flagging would be a huge problem and will create a huge extra workload on the HR officer. So unless we have a plan in place to feasibly make this possible, I don't see it being working in an actual sense.
Thanks a lot, Luke, for mentioning this. I was about to say that this is something that we would obviously need to evaluate in depth upon, well, the policy also being approved then by the GB. So there's still quite a lot of time before it would become there. But sorry. Thank you, Luke. We definitely need to evaluate. This has not been done fully because there's many different changes, and depending on what is decided, is it the MP? Is it not on the MP? Is it, I think once we have the options, we'll do a proper assessment. But yes, for sure, if this falls on the desk of the HR officer, it is a significant amount of added work. So that it would indeed cost money if we need to increase the hours of the HR officer. As for the MP, is the idea that new features are developed by the team of coders. So it's not necessarily something that would cost more money. I just want to be worried that this is something that could take a long time because there's already a lot of different features that need to be done. We need to remove a flagging feature that we added. There's a lot of things. So it's just to say the timeline, the feasibility in terms of finances, I think is not massive, but it's the timeline could easily take a year for this to be implemented.
Thank you, Pauline. We'll take point from somebody which we haven't heard from this round, which is the check the college. Still of order, and you gave up very much. You gave us a few minutes. And this is true, but it was followed by direct response. Yeah, okay, we'll acknowledge the check the college. People recognize only even say you have the floor now.
Do I have the floor? Thank you. I just wanted to follow up on what Luke said. I feel like this flagging system would bring more problems and issues than benefits. And this has a very easy solution. If my session president isn't giving out evaluations to officials, I will just write it in his evaluation when I'm evaluating him, so that the other people can read it when they're selecting him next time. So I don't really feel like this will make our life easier. It will just make someone else's way harder.
Thank you.
I wouldn't agree with the solution because we also need to respect the time and work of the NC board members who evaluate the leadership members. And if they have to wait until the end, until the evaluation deadline for the leadership members is over, and only then they can actually write the part about the leadership members, not like putting it in, I think is very disrespectful towards NC board members' time and their schedule. And I'd say that the flagging, yes, it might have like not very beneficial effects, but on the other hand, that's also the point of the evaluation. And the evaluation that the leadership members gives to team members might also not be very beneficial in the future for those members being evaluated, but it just works both ways. Yeah, sorry, I'm done.
Thank you. Order.
Technically, we cannot have DR to DR.
We have multiple, and it is not have DRs to DRs.
Correct me if I'm wrong, we're under the policy of evaluation right now. It is already obligatory for NC board members to write in the session leadership evaluations that they have not complied with evaluation requirements for the team members. So this discussion is just.
Thank you, Albania, Serbia, and then Dr. Proposal.
Yes, my point is similar to what Norway said. If someone is flagged, can I, for example, when I want to apply as a VP, see that he was flagged for not providing an eval, so that I can know that sort of as I'm applying, you know? It would make sense to me to see that someone does not provide evals on time when applying for their team. Yeah. Yes, thank you for the constructive points, everyone. First, yeah, I mean, Norway and the IO about that dialogue. If this is implemented later than December 2023, which is the initial date, which was thought, that is no problem. I was myself told, or like in the discussions earlier, that a period of 6 months would be more than enough. But after all, it's out of our hands, so it's no problem if it comes later. Late then with EYP Ireland and the HR officer. Yes, we don't, as the IO explained, we don't think this would fall on them. This would be a system itself. And the Czech Republic about the flagging system and writing it yourself. Of course, this is a possibility, but why have we not been doing this? Why have we not been doing this so far? Essentially, I'm not setting a blame on us as NC board members, but if there's a reason we haven't done it so far, is because we don't actually do it. And if we don't actually do it, we need someone else to tell us to do it, or we need something to nudge us into the way of doing that. But I mean, I myself, or as an NC, would be very happy to do that, but I'm to see an evaluation like that, but I have personally never. EYP Albania, I did not fully understand your point, but what I can at least reiterate one more time is that the current policy says, and clause 24 says, that if a team leader does not provide an evaluation, they will be flagged negatively. EYP student actually does not stand by the negatively side, but if he, we, she, they will be flagged. A little note on that, we would also like to, we look forward, if this proposal passed, to work on a less negative way of flagging. For instance, last BNC, we talked about using the color red. We don't think that's appropriate. We're for instance, thinking about being able to see when someone has not yet uploaded an evaluation, or has not yet or will do. Serbia, great point about as an applicant. This was mainly aimed for selection panels to do so. As an applicant, we believe that essentially it would be common knowledge, as it would be really accessible, and the point is not on throwing shade or being negative upon people openly. It's just for selection panels to know what they're getting into when they select a leadership. As leaderships, we know they end up really affecting a session to a high extent. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. We'll have the second round on clause 23. Clause 23 for convenience is this one. Basically extending the deadline to 8 weeks and having evals for officials of the 7 leadership and team members. So this is what we'll be discussing this round. And it's going to vary that. You will please go ahead.
It is quite a short point, but we just want to say that we are against the extension of the period, as the evaluations for everybody should be done as close as possible to the session. That's it.
Sure.
Yeah, we actually think that the deadline should be extended. Because sometimes post-period RESs, for example, it can take weeks after the session, and it is extremely important to evaluate that period as well, as it affects the whole performance of a person who attended the session. So in some cases, also team leaders do evaluate like around 20 people or 25 in case of organizing things. So it does take a lot of time. While I still believe that it's better to submit the eval as soon as possible, sometimes it will take more time than 6 weeks. Right, yeah.
Yeah, I also agree with that the time for evaluation should be extended. Well, it is necessary for the evaluation to be submitted as soon as possible. We should take into account a work-life balance, and that right after the session, which is usually quite an intense period in our lives, we should have a bit more time to, just breathe, take a step back and think of it. And second, post-session period is also a time where NC or HOs are responsible for submitting documents such as financial reports, such as report from the session, and other documents that I don't want to say are more important than evaluation, but can, are also something very, very important, crucial, that needs to be taken care of. So I would extend the period so that different people responsible for the session have different time to accommodate to different needs. Thanks.
Yes, thank you for the points. Croatia, we do understand your point of view. Yet, as mentioned in the aim, another aim of this would be to increase the quality of the evaluations. If you have less time, you will most likely have a lower quality. We want to give the NCs a possibility to further the process of understanding what has happened, what could have gone wrong, and what could have be done better. And joining on the points done by EYP Belarus and EYP Poland, those things are also kept in mind, but in our thinking process, it was mainly about the quality evaluations and what really we can learn about it. This is the sole point of, I think, having this conversation. And a more, or like rather informal point is that who has not asked Joao to extend like your deadline for an eval? So we think it would be a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. We will open the floor for the third round debate, which is on general stuff and close 28, which is the new clause. Once again, it is this one. So basically, 9 is done. We request evaluation of the done. Yeah, as the only have please sit down.
I didn't have a chair.
Oh, but somebody just buy a chair. But yeah, basically you will start with the Norway, then with Florida.
Yeah, so this is kind of returning to proposal number 1 plus 5. And also returning kind of to my whole question about feasibility, because I have a question for the GB. If we vote in favor of this proposal and the IO makes a review saying this will take us more time than what has been indicated as wanted by the BNC, then would it be possible to make it kind of like a priority of sorts, to kind of be like, okay, we get that you cannot make it within this timeline, but we want this to be like a priority for the IO to work towards? Like, is it possible for you then later, when you are reviewing our decisions here, to kind of make it so that it will be easier for the IO to implement as well, so that we don't put them in a difficult position?
Thank you. Norway is called.
It's fine, I'll get my workout today.
Just because this was like also the governing body felt the need for that. Since this would be a policy change that would be approved by BNC and GB, if it will be approved by both STs, I don't know yet. This would have a priority, but during the time that this can be implemented, maybe leadership can send a, I don't know, Google Forms or something like that to replace this and have a substitute for this measure. But yeah, it will be done as soon as possible.
So. As far as the 9 calendar days following the event's last day are concerned, while we welcome the thinking and agree that there should be some sort of reasonable deadline, we think this one is quite stifling, because if we talked about work-life balance for the previous 2 clauses, if we talked about reflecting on one's own performance, then why shouldn't people to be evaluated have also a bit of a longer time with that? Also, it's quite common that we have very different commitments regarding our studies, regarding work, regarding other events, EAP work, board work even. Why should it just be 9 days? That's a big problem for our NC. And that's it. Thank you. Days.
I would remark on the request evaluation button. This is by no means to throw shade at the members platform or the IO for like building it, but of course we've had noticed that the members platform is not always on air. And I was just wondering, for example, if the members platform fails to be on air when like the time frame is open to request an evaluation, or something goes wrong and like the request doesn't come through, like how would you like work around that, I guess? Because you will be reliable on the members platform for this a little bit.
I think that's more of a general point that, like what we're discussing, it's still a beginning, let's say, and it needs some perfection and it needs some adjustment. But for now, I think it's a very, very good step that gives us somewhat a base to work on in the future. And for instance, when we talk about leadership not being able to submit the evaluation because of work-life balance, not having enough time, we should later develop some mechanisms and procedures how to ensure that in such situation they can be very open and communicative about it and report it to the IO, ask for extension and so on. However, what we're discussing now is, in my opinion, a very, very, very good beginning.
Yes, yeah, the point, European Norway, the GB answered about EYP Croatia, the work-life balance and the 9 days being short. This is interesting because when coming up with this idea, why 9 days? Well, the first idea was most sessions end on Sunday evenings. So we thought, okay, let's give it maybe a week and a bit more. So people have a working week, Monday to Friday, a weekend where they usually rest, and then 1 or 2 days later to, make their mind. But when we asked, we had some leadership members, some NC reps who are actually here in an informal way, how many days do you give your team members to ask for an eval? And most of them answered 5, 6, 7 days. So 9 days, in our opinion, is enough. It's enough. And past that, you're starting taking on the time that the leadership member actually has the time to write this evaluation. So, in our opinion, it's a good ground. That's not too much, not too little. Yes. And the EYP Poland. We understand your point, although we think that it is time to go forward. There was evaluation or this topic Iran needs to move forward in a general sense. So that's why we think it's good to vote on this and have a conversation. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Christina. So we have received a couple of formal requests. We have received, I think, this is not updated because we didn't get all the things that have requested. I think it's in total 6 NCs with the Ireland, with the Portugal, with Belarus, with the Albania, with the a couple of them anyway. It's 6. Serbia and Czech Republic. I think that's how to split the vote in terms of having it as Article 5 as one vote and everything else as another vote. There is also a request by BNC Spain to vote for each individual clause. So since that's more gradual, we will propose to have it that way, so 3 votes. And now we will ask you to vote terminate from the center and split the vote. So if anybody wants to actually see how you guys want to vote, or we just split the vote. We just split the vote. Okay. So first vote then would be on, since this is once again not updated because we just request 2 minutes ago. First vote is on the adoption of clause 5. In the slide. So all those in favor, please raise your green buttons. Yeah. Thank you to the highly up in the air and come well, double check our count. Okay, 17 in favor for.
Oh, no, 18.
18 in favor for number 1, against.
People who have green placards, please just lower them.
Yes. Please, I can see this spot in the corner, after Ireland, Spain, cool, thank you. Spain, Portugal, others. Sorry, because you have to start with the minutes. Slide. Yeah, so it's 30, right? 30. 30 against. And abstentions? No abstentions? Okay, so, just to not make a very unfortunate error, I think it shouldn't be an error to my catch count. But, so we have 15 out of 51. Okay, yeah. So this is a network-wide policy, so it requires 2/3 majority of the vote, with 18 votes in favor and 30 votes against, it has not been approved. Then moving on, the second vote is not the vote on the proposals. It's just on proposal Article 23. The second vote is just on clause 23. All those in favor, please raise your placards. I got 29. 29. All those against. That's Armenia. Thank you. The proxy and abstentions. Croatia. Okay, so with 29 votes in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstention, this has been approved by the BNC board. BNC, it still has to be approved by the governing body. And yeah, and the final vote is on clause 28, which is the bottom one. All those in favor, please raise your placards.
Wait, check it.
23?
I haven't counted yet.
Okay.
I think some people are still making their decision, question mark.
I counted 23.
We know it's 31 in total right now, so we don't necessarily have to count this then.
23.
Okay, 23. And against, please, there's a black cards. So CZ, HR, IT, and is that your proxy as well?
No, it's both.
Yeah,
both
Armenia.
Croatian.
Yeah. And EYP Bosnia and Herzegovina. So that is in total 6. Oh, that's Spain. No, Ireland. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. And abstentions. NL and DE. Okay. So with and Belarus. Sorry. Yes. What's your message in Slack?
It was a plan about, and I engaged in 2 short for media teams in particular.
I mean, you also have a point for IS is bigger events. You also think that.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I mean, to be fair, like, even if you know, like, if you at that point before the whole post-session things are happening, know that you want an eval, I think that's totally legit. Like, it's not the deadline to submit the eval, but to request an eval. So I don't think that's problematic in those terms. So basically, to reiterate, it was 23 votes in favor. 23 out of 31, right? Yeah, that's 74%. So it has passed. It's over 2/3 majority. So out of these proposals, 23 and 28 have been approved. Not workshops results yet. There is another formal request by. Just give me a second. Formal request by EYP the Netherlands, EYP Switzerland, EYP Bosnia and Herzegovina. That request to change the agenda to include another agenda item, which is exposing the admin of EYP USA. All those in favor, please vote. To be fair, from what I know, this was discussed with them. They're totally fine with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. We have yes. Yes. Question. EYP Croatia.
Yes. Well, the EYP USA has a representative. Does it mean an extra EYP Croatian member can join for like 2 minutes? I mean, Dora is the president.
That is fair. Okay, so who will be the spokesperson for this though?
Ireland.
Ireland? Okay, Ireland can be the spokesperson.
Also speak up.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, if you want.
Ideal for me.